the Thai fighter. I want to hear about this guy because it looks like a tough fight. Like he looks like he wanted to kill you.
Oh, this was so tough. It's probably, I'd say, one of my toughest fighters. This was in Lady Reporter. They kept telling me, he's so tough, the stuntmen don't even want to fight him. And I just remember I had a dress on, so I couldn't put pads on my legs. And they kept choreographing where he hits me in the shins. And there's one scene, right? It looks like nothing when you film it. It's probably one of the worst techniques I've ever taken on a film, where he kicks me in the shins and I have to fall flat on my face. Never mind that hurting, but falling flat on your face. And when we first started, he was hitting me so hard that the little pads that they gave me weren't helping, and my hands were so bruised. So then the props guy made me iron out of steel arm guards. So now we're fighting, and I'm hitting really hard because he's hitting really hard. So I'm going to hit hard. And now I'm hurting his hands because I have metal. So then they made him metal guards. And the two of us, every time we were fighting, I mean, it's filmed with no sound, so you don't hear it, but you hear clink, 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 like that. And even when I look at those scenes today, when he has me and he's doing those knees to my chest, boy, I tell you, yeah, I was glad when that scene was done.
So, Cynthia, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast and talking to us about your experience as a martial arts star. Very excited to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Well, can you tell us about your martial art background to get started?
Well, my first style was Tung Sido, and I was 13 years old when I started that. And then I got my black belt from there. And at that time, I wanted to learn weapons, and Tung Sido did not have weapons. So I started learning White Dragon Kung Fu. And then I started competing, and I was introduced to Eagle Claw Kung Fu. So I started studying Eagle Claw Kung Fu in New York City. And then I was introduced to Wushu. So I moved to California basically for competition and to study with Roger Tung, Wushu. And as I was there, I started studying Taekwondo with Ernie Reyes. And I've also studied Kempo. So pretty much extensively in those styles there. And I still, still dabble in it. I still want to learn Filipino stick fighting. I still want to learn Chen Tai Chi. So I think this year has been 49 years I've been in martial arts. So, as a martial artist, we never stop learning.
Where do you think your kicking abilities came from in that timeline of martial arts training?
It definitely from the Tung Sido. I am very happy that that was my first style, because I am known like for kicking, and that was my power. I was a lot more powerful in my legs and my arms at that time. So I'm really for my body type, it was a great thing to have Tung Sido as my base.
So what was the training regimen to build powerful kicks for you?
Well, back time I started, it was like in the 70s, and martial arts really weren't that popular. I mean, I started at the Scranton Karate School, was the only school around. At that point, I didn't even know what martial arts were, and a lot of people didn't either. They were basically thinking that, martial arts at that time, if you did know of it, you had to be a man, that it was definitely a male sport or art to learn, that women really couldn't do that they weren't capable of it. And so I trained with all these guys, and our regimen was pretty tough. I remember when we were testing for black belt at that time, my instructor, Frank Chinovich, he brought in 3 Korean instructors from Korea, and they said, your students are good, but they can't fight. So for 3 weeks, all they did was intensively fight with us. And that was probably some of the toughest training I ever did, because I remember they would say, like, throw a spinning wheel kick, and you knew that they were going to sweep your leg out. And I would come home, with bruises. I'd be limping. And, at that time, they didn't really care if you quit, because it wasn't a business. It was basically, are you tough enough to be part of our school? And if you're not, there's the door. And that was kind of, how it was back then. So I learned to be really tough, really fast. And, the good lesson was when I came home, my parents were like, why are you doing that? Look at how black and blue you are. I mean, I have bruises going all the way up my hip, all the way up my body. And, from that point on, I was never really afraid to fight anybody in a competition again, because I knew that they would not hit me as hard as these Korean guys did. And they didn't care, if you were a woman or not. You were just a Tang Soo Do practitioner, and you need to be tough.
Why were you there? If you didn't know what martial arts was, what drove you into doing this Tang Soo Do martial art?
Well, I was young, as a young teenager, and I was hanging out with my girlfriend, and her parents owned a health club. And on Sunday, they would come down and close the gym, and then they would clean all the equipment. And they had a big room, and I was always a physical kid. I always liked doing sports or anything that was a little bit out of the ordinary. So I would go down and practice cartwheels and rolls on this big carpeted floor. And then they'd come in with their karate uniforms on, and they were doing their forms. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And what are you wearing? I really like the belt and the uniform. And they said, we're doing a Tang Soo Do, and we learn how to defend ourselves with our hands and our feet. And to me, that was like such an awesome concept. I've never heard anything. I've never seen anything like that. And I went home to my mom and I said, I want to learn this. My mom had no idea what it was, but, she was very supportive of anything that, I wanted to try. So she signed me up at Scranton Karate School for 4 months.
Did you have any sort of natural physical abilities that you could exploit, or was it all built from ground zero?
It was pretty much built from ground zero, because I was flexible more than the average person, but I couldn't get into splits. So that was something that developed along the way. And obviously I wasn't that strong. I had to develop the strength, through the training. So pretty much I'd say it was like, the average person, starting in martial arts. It's just that, when I was studying for 5.5 months, I was an orange belt, and my instructor put me in a competition. And at that time, it was just women that didn't have any division of ranks. So it was like from white belt to whatever, black belt, grandmaster, you name it, women were all thrown in one category. A black belt took first, black belt took third, and I took second after 5.5 months of training. And I thought, wow, I beat these black belts, and I've only been training for so little of a time that from that point on, I said, I'm going to train so hard because I want to be the best in this sport. So that kind of put a little fire, under my butt to train hard. And I've always kept that, that even when I was competing professionally, just train.
You talked about you've talked about how you got into Hong Kong films multiple times. But if just a quick summary of what landed you in your first Hong Kong film role?
Well, when I moved to California, I started training with Ernie Reyes, and he had the West Coast demonstration team, which was one of the, it was probably the first demonstration team to travel around the world, doing demonstrations to music and choreography. And Paul Maslick, who was the editor of Inside Kung Fu magazine, said there's a Hong Kong director. He's looking for a guy. Bring the guys down, to audition. And he said, what about the girls? He says, yeah, bring them, but, really looking for a guy. Corey Yuen was there from Seasonal Films. And we all, there must have been about 300 people at Heel Cho School. That's where the auditions were. And I had to do forms, self-defense, fighting, and I did some weapons. And Corey Yuen said, I want the girl. I don't want a guy. I want the girl. So that was the start to it. And it was just purely, fell in my lap. It wasn't something that I was saying, oh, I want to be in movies. I love movies. I loved watching the old Hong Kong movies. First movie I ever saw was Snake and the Eagle's Shadow with Jackie Chan. And I never, beyond my wildest dreams, ever thought that I would go and be in a movie, especially in Hong Kong.
Was he looking for a female star at the time, or did you just change his mind?
No, I changed his mind. He was they were looking for a guy to be the next Bruce Lee. And I'm just really happy that Corey Yuen was so innovative and at that time taking a chance, because my first movie was with Michelle Yeoh. So you have two female leads fighting, that he foresaw that this is new, this is something different. And a lot of people, even after I'd say it took probably about like 10 years of me doing films where they finally said in America, we can use Cynthia as the lead instead of being just the girl that came in and fought and then the guy came in to save the day. So I really owe a lot to Corey Yuen for having that vision.
Was there a culture shock going to Hong Kong for you?
Absolutely. I have been in Hong Kong before because I went with my Eagle Claw teacher, and it was just basically to train. I really didn't see too much of the culture of the city. I just remember him taking us, a couple students he brought over, and we would train in the living room of these Kung Fu masters, or on the rooftop. And that's all I remember of Hong Kong. So now I'm going back there and doing a movie, and I thought that I was going to be in a period film, that they dressed me up like the old movies that I saw. And I thought, oh, they'll probably give me a wig and I'll have razor blades in my braids, because I'm thinking of what I saw in the films. And I was quite shocked that they're like, no, you're going to play Cindy, and it's a modern day film and you have modern day clothes on and you play a cop from England. So I was quite shocked. And I remember flying over, looking, at the little dinghies in the harbor, thinking, wow, I feel like I'm going into Hans Island from Enter the Dragon.
Did you watch Hong Kong films growing up?
No, not until much later, after I studied. My first Hong Kong film was when I was going to New York studying Eagle Claw with Sammo Hung, because I would drive up every Sunday. It'd be about like 3 hours up, and then we would train, and then he would take us to Chinatown, have dinner, and watch a movie, and then I trained 3 hours back. So it's funny, nowadays when people say, "Oh, I have to drive a half hour, to get to my martial art class," I'm like, that's nothing. I used to drive 3 hours, but that was my first introduction into Hong Kong movies, and that wasn't until maybe a couple years after I was training in martial arts.
Any other action films growing up that you watched?
After I became involved in martial arts, then I started, then I saw Enter the Dragon, which I love that, Return of the Dragon. Back at that time, there weren't a whole lot of them. This is even, I guess when Chuck Norris first started. So there wasn't a whole lot to see, that was available to me being in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, not many films with female action leads at that time, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this was the first, yes, madam, and then it was a big success. So then Golden Harvest wanted to do the China O'Briens, and they wanted to do an American picture. So we shot China 1 and 2 pretty much simultaneously, almost sometimes at the same time. We do scenes from 2 to 1, and they brought in Robert Klaus, who directed Bruce Lee, and they believed in a female star, and China O'Brien, which it pretty much is the first movie a lot of people have seen worldwide of me in, and it was like a shock. Here's this Caucasian girl fighting. What the heck is this? They haven't seen that. And that film was actually quite successful worldwide, and you would think that would open a lot of doors to having female action stars, but it didn't. It took a while. And even today, compared to how many guys are action stars, the females are still under and don't really get that credibility. And I've been fighting for that like my whole life, but finally I think I'm considered like a peer of my martial art male actors.
Doing Yes, Madam, you're the lead character in this movie. Was that strange to any of the Hong Kong stuntmen on set?
Well, first of all, when I got there, hardly no one spoke English, right? So it was all kind of communication. The only person that really spoke English was Amy Chow, who was Raymond Chow's daughter, and she wasn't on the set all the time. So we kind of got this sign language that I understood, what they were saying just by looking at them. And at first, I think they were very cautious. Here's this girl, this blonde girl that is like 5'3" and tiny. And, I think at first they were going to try to treat me with like kit gloves, and they gave me this really hard move to do, and I couldn't do it at first. And I just kept trying. I think it was like someone grabbed my foot, and from that foot I had to jump up and do a spinning back kick. and I finally got it. And I think from that point on, they saw that I'm hardworking. I'll do whatever they say. I wasn't afraid of getting hit, you know, and the more they saw that, the more they respected me and didn't treat me any different. You know, I got hurt many times, just like the Hong Kong stuntmen do. And I think they just said, you know, this girl is tough and she can really fight, and we can work with that.
They had a pretty long history of having female martial art leads in movies, so it wasn't that big of a leap for them, was it?
I think having a Caucasian woman, it was, but you know, that's different. Like they've had, you know, Asian actresses obviously doing it, but I don't really think they had a Caucasian, especially if not that I know of, and if they did, it certainly wasn't a lead.
Do you think that you might have instilled a little bit of respect in terms of, you know, an American's ability to go over there and do what these guys have been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, then I think later on, like, you know, I stayed in Hong Kong for 3 years. I did about 7 films, and they would bring some women over, some American women, to be in some of the films. More Caucasian guys were coming in, so they were basically, we were considered the foreigners. We're going to hire some foreigners to come in, and I think it opened up the door a lot for both men and women to come in and do some Hong Kong action.
Yeah. So you co-star with Michelle Yeoh. This is one of her early films, and she was just beginning to be a star, I think. Were you both sort of on the same training regimen, and were you choreographed with the same sort of respect? What was that relationship like between both of you and the stunt team?
Michelle Yeoh and I, it was her third movie. It was my first. She learned a little bit of martial arts, but she wasn't really a martial artist. At that time, she was a dancer, so she was very flexible and she could move. And I think our training regimen was a little bit the same, but I trained differently because I would train at this local gym, and I would do martial arts. And then when we got on set, that's when they would choreograph the moves, and we would learn them. And I have to say, it was really tough for both of us. I mean, we were bruised. I mean, there was one scene that was cut out of Yes, Madam, because we were all black and blue, and we learned right away that our costuming has to be long sleeves so we could put some padding in, but we were all black here. And then every time we would fight, we'd flinch because it would hurt. And Corey Yuen cut out that whole scene. And then we were like, okay, yeah, and I think, we supported each other. One of us would see the other one do this really hard stunt, and then that would give us the courage to say, yeah, I could do this one too. And I think we both were a very good support team for each other. And that movie took 7.5 months to shoot. So that was a long, long time filming.
How about the end fight itself? How long was filming that?
Yeah, just that end scene when we came in, the two of us come into that building, which was a set inside a warehouse. That took 1 month.
What was the daily routine then? I mean, you would show up. I understand the days are long. Is that correct? And then
there's no union.
Choreography.
Yeah. Sometimes you were shooting like 15, 20 hours a day.
Talk us through the average day on a Hong Kong film shoot, from when you show up and then till wrap.
Well, we would get to the set. We never knew what we were shooting. There was no script. So we didn't know what we had to say. We didn't know what the fight choreography was. And sometimes we would get at the location, and then the writer would be there writing the scene. And the choreographers will say, okay, look, this is what we have. And maybe they would say, hey, we want to build like a stunt here. So that's why it took so long, because there was a lot of preparation that was done on the set. And then they would show us the choreography there. And it would take, we would practice it until we got it done. And the norm for Hong Kong is to do things like quite many, many, many times. So it wouldn't be outrageous for us to do the same scene at least 30 times, 30 different takes. And it wasn't because you didn't get it right. It's just that they just like to take a lot of takes. So maybe they would say, we'll take something from here, from here, from here. And even if you did it, like that was a big difference in shooting in America. Because in America, if you did your scene, great, that's it. We got it, move on. But not in Hong Kong. And a lot of times I never really knew what to say. Some of the things that they would do is my friend said, well, you're doing a Hong Kong movie and it's kind of synonymous that your mouth will keep moving even though, they dub you in. And they said, don't let that happen. So ask them, what you are saying in Chinese and try to put the same syllables to it. And when they shoot it, I didn't know this at first, but they shoot everything with no sound. So they would dub it in later. And when we were doing it, I remember we do a scene where we're really angry and the other actor would be so soft talking. And I'm like, yeah, angry. So I'm talking a little bit louder. And afterwards it's like, well, why don't you do that? And they said, well, I'm only an actor. I'm not a voice actor. Someone with a voice will come in and do it and they'll be better than I am. So I thought, oh, okay. And so that was, a lot of things that I've learned on the set. Because remember, I came in as a novice. I had no idea what filming was about. So I thought all film was like that. Oh, that's just how they shoot.
Did they think that you were overdoing it, or did they think like, oh wow, she's actually acting the way you would actually act in the scene? I think that's hilarious that the guy just...
There wasn't a whole lot of direction for acting. I mean, sometimes I didn't even know what was going on because like in Yes Men, no, I think it was Righting Wrongs, the second movie I did, they said, just come in and put your badge on the desk. And I was like, well, why? And just put it on the desk. And then when I saw the movie, I got fired and I had to turn in my badge. And I was like, oh, you should have told me that because I would have had a little bit of a different feeling, for that. So sometimes things happen like that. A lot of times I didn't know what the other person was saying. So I would just have to wait till they stopped talking and then I'd go in with my line. So it was really kind of difficult. When I did China O'Brien, which was, English speaking. And I also did No Retreat, No Surrender. So it was a great it felt great listening that I knew what the other person was saying. Because in Hong Kong, I really had no clue what they were saying to me and nobody ever told me what they were saying.
Did you find it hard to be in character during the fights with that kind of piecemeal style shooting?
Yeah, no, I never did. Because for me, fighting is fighting, whether you do 3 moves or you're doing 15 moves, you're still fighting. And I think coming from being already a martial artist and a competitor, in professional competition, I just knew, when you're fighting, you have that fighting spirit, you act like, you're really fighting. So that was very, very easy for me, to do. I've never felt, even today, if I'm doing a fight scene, out of character. And it's funny because I remember when I was shooting Tiger Claws 3, Jalal Mary said, hey, I want you to, be in 3. And I said, I can't, I'm pregnant. And he said, well, come in and you'll get killed in the beginning, but then in the end, it was really just a dream. And I said, okay. And he said, well, you got to fight a little bit. And I thought, and I was really in the early stages of pregnancy. I was like, had such a morning sickness. And I was like, well, Jalal, I can't fight really hard. But when the cameras came on, I fought so hard, I couldn't stop it. I think it's just in me. I could not fight and less down, the intent or the feeling of fighting. I just, I just had to do it, even though I didn't want to at that time because I was afraid, that I didn't want to do anything like to hurt the baby. That was in my mind.
So when you were doing Corey Yuen's choreography, was it difficult to memorize a long sequence of moves and do them at a cadence that he demanded?
Yeah, it was very difficult. I think it was a little bit less difficult to me than a lot of the other people they brought in because I was used to when I was training in mainland China and when I was training in Eagle Claw, we would learn so many forms so fast. And at that point, I probably knew about 60 forms and I had to remember them fast. I had to learn them fast. I was in mainland China for like 8 weeks and I had to learn 6 different forms, wushu forms and different weapons. They're really long. So I think my mind just kind of trained to learn that. But sometimes you're on the set and you just can't, you're going so fast and you just learn the choreography that your mind just kind of goes on automatic pilot and this comes at you and you block here. And a couple of times, you end up doing a different move, but the other person just follows along with it. You get back to the same spot. But I'd say, it's very hard for a lot of martial artists to come in, learn like a a long fight scene like that and do it, because you're not only just doing the fight scene, you have to pay attention to the cameras, and you can't move out here because you're out of focus. So there's a lot more thinking of just even your moves, so it could be pretty intense on the mind.
Was Dick Wei easily able to accommodate you as a new Hong Kong film stunt woman?
I fought him in the ending of Yes, Madam, and people were telling me before, they said, oh, he's the hardest person to fight. Oh, we don't want to fight him. He's going to hit you hard, right? And he did. He hit really hard. And I just remember two things with that. I remember he kicks me in the groin, and Corey Yuen wanted me to grab my groin. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Isn't that a move for a guy? Why would I grab my groin, right? And he goes, because it would hurt too. I said, but no, I'm grabbing it. And I have to do what the director says. And then I kicked Dick Wei back in the groin, and he grabs his. I always thought that was a strange scene, but I guess people liked it. And we had this one scene where now we're coming into the ending, so we've already been shooting about 6.5 months. So Corey Yuen wanted to practice his English, so he thought he learned the word cut. So Dick Wei supposed to hit the wall and then kick me, and he hit the wall wrong, and Corey Yuen said cut. Well, I knew what cut was, but Dick Wei didn't. So I stood up, and he hit me in the face so hard that I had to go, my ears started bleeding, and I went to a doctor, and he said that he hit me so hard he split my internal ear open, but because it's in so deep, there's nothing they could do. And then they sent me back to set to continue the scene with Dick Wei.
No permanent injury from that, I take it, huh?
No, I don't think so.
When working with Dick Wei, would he ever contribute to the choreography?
I don't recall that. I think he did what the choreographer said. I remember Corey Yuen in the ending said, hey, is there any movement that you'd like to add to it? And of course, I developed that Rothrock sting, the scorpion kick. So I showed him it, and that's why that got put in the ending there, where I kicked Dick Wei with that, which was a stunt double, because he didn't want to take that to the head, because I really had to hit the guy in the head. But I think Dick Wei just kind of did what the choreographers say. I think that's the way of shooting there, is that you listen to your action directors, and you do that action. And like for me, if I couldn't do it, it was really complicated, they just waited till I finally could do it, and then when I finally could do it, then they would shoot it.
Why did he decide that you had to actually hit the stuntman? Why couldn't he just line it up?
Because that's not how Hong Kong shoots. You hit hard, and whether it's the face, you get hit in the face, the body. I was shooting, I think it was Lady Reporter, and I'm fighting like two guys, and they keep hitting me, and I'd have to turn the corner, and I'd get hit in the face with a foot, and I couldn't flinch. And I was like, when do I get to hit them? Because it's so much easier when you're hitting someone else and taking all these hits. But when I did Martial Law, which was one of the first movies I did in America, the stuntmen were like, Cynthia, stop hitting so hard. Because I remember the first movie I did, I was fighting Eddie Mayer, and we were doing Yes, Madam in the airport scene, and I had to come back and do an elbow, and he had a tank top on, so he didn't have any pads on. And Corey Yuen kept saying, hit harder. And he called me Cindy. He's like, harder, harder. And then Eddie's in my ear going, oh, not so hard. It's hurting, And I'm like, I don't know. What do I do? Do I listen to the director? Do I listen to Eddie? And then the stuntmen were saying, you don't have to hit us that hard. So I was used to really hitting hard and getting hit from Hong Kong. So when I worked with American stunt people, I had to turn it down a bit.
After this, did you go to do Millionaires Express next, or was it Righting Wrongs after this?
Oh yeah, I did Yes, Madam, and then I did a film, No Retreat, No Surrender, and then I did Shanghai Express, and then Righting Wrongs.
Gotcha. So No Retreat, No Surrender, part 2. Is that correct? That's Corey Yuen also. Mm-hmm. You fight Hwang Jang Lee in that one. He's a legendary kicker, and you have 2 kickers going against each other. What was it like kicking with Hwang Jang Lee?
Well, he was very hard. And I kind of remember I had a little pad on. They just give me a little pad that went on my stomach, and he wasn't hitting me on that. He was hitting me other places. And I kept going, hit the pad, hit the pad. And he was very tough. And it was funny because the easiest person for me to fight was Yuen Biao, because our synchronicity and our fluidity was pretty much the same, and our power was the same. And when I was fighting with Hwang Jang Lee, he was different. He was you know, his timing was different than mine, so we had to adapt to it. So it was a little more difficult than usual, but still, you know, you just keep doing it until you know, Corey Yuen said, yeah, good, okay, we're good on that. But yeah, he was a phenomenal kicker. It's just that's like hit me in the pad.
Was he missing on accident, or was he initiating you into 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 Hong Kong in his own way?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I never thought he was hitting me on purpose. I think, you know, you're doing so many moves. Like, you know, you're doing so many. It's easy, and not to say I didn't miss some people sometimes too, because of course you do. You know, but you know, he would like hit me in the chest, and I'd go, oh no, that hurt. You can't hit me there. You know, where if I hit him in the chest, it wouldn't be so bad.
Actually, I wanted to talk about Yuen Biao real quick. Yeah, what was the synergy like with you guys on set? How was that process? And did he also add into the choreography his own ideas?
Yeah, he didn't speak English. So basically we just had to communicate through action. And yes, he did choreograph a lot of stuff. He does some incredible stunts on there. And I think one of the moves that he choreographed, which blew my mind, is he does a flip onto a rocking chair, and he lands on the rocking chair handles. And he did that quite many times to get to land on that. And I think he got hurt a little bit doing that. And yeah, so I think he did help, you know, with some of the choreography. And it was interesting because I blew my anterior cruciate ligament out right before I did that movie. So I had a hard time kicking with my right leg. So I had to change everything to my left leg kicking. And I thought, oh, this is going to look terrible, because, you know, I was more of a dominant right leg kicker than left. And I was surprised, you know, when it came out that you couldn't really tell. So I was like, oh, wow, good. That's the genius of filming, you know, that I was afraid that, you know, my action wasn't going to look so good, because my knee would just buckle every time I would put, you know, all that weight on it or pivot on it or jump on it.
How did you blow your ligament out?
I went home. Actually, I did it right before Millionaires Express, but it hurt. It still wasn't fixed. I came home and I was training. I still had a school at that time in Northern California, and I was doing jumping hook kicks. And when I landed, my knee just buckled. And interesting enough, I just live with it. You know, I still haven't gotten it fixed either, and that's been like, you know, over 30 years.
A knee sleeve, I guess that just keeps it stable enough for you.
Yeah, you know, I did. I had a brace on it, you know, and even now, like when I do major hikes or if I'm skiing, I just put that little brace on it. It always hurts. It's never like feels 100% great, but I think you know, I always say I have a very high tolerance for pain, and that's why it's very successful in Hong Kong, because it is very painful shooting action movies there.
So when doing righting wrongs, I looked at the action team for that, and it's like 8 people. What was the process for coming up with the action on that
The
film?
director kind of tells the choreographers what he wants, and then they add to it, and then he'll look at it and maybe he'll change it or he'll keep it the same. But it was interesting because in Hong Kong, all the directors, even like Jackie Chan, you know, Sammo, they all have their own stunt team that they work with. They have their own basic core. So this stunt team knows the kind of action that the director likes, and he will probably say, look, at this is what I want. I want her jumping from here. I want this, I want that. And then you know, go work on it. And sometimes on set, they would be figuring it out at the same time.
Now I understand that Corey Yuen, did he direct your scene in the end fight?
In Writing Wrongs?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you were doing your fight against the stuntmen in the end fight, um, how long did that fight take for you guys to shoot?
Yeah, that was probably a couple of weeks. I think Writing Wrongs took about 5.5 months to shoot.
I mean, did the action team figure out an action and then tell the director where to put camera, or was the director deciding camera and the action team would decide on the movements for that camera?
Well, Corey Yuen is the director, and then he'd have his DP, and they would talk about it, and you would rehearse it, then they would look at it, and then they would decide, where the camera angles were going to be. But I think sometimes Corey Yuen would look at the action as we were learning it and we're doing it, and then I think that's why we did so many takes too, because we do so many for the camera angles as well.
There's an alternate ending where you actually live. You came back to Hong Kong to reshoot the end? Is that what happened?
Yeah, what happened is in the original we both die. I get I don't know, some kind of spike or big screw like in my throat, and then Yuen Biao falls out of the airplane and he dies. And it's the first time that the two leads die in a Hong Kong movie, so they thought, oh, this is going to be something different. And they showed it in Taiwan, and the Taiwan people hated the fact that we died, and they were not happy, and they were like booing. And, then Golden Harvest got nervous. They said, oh my gosh, they hate it in Taiwan. So I was ready to shoot China O'Brien, and then Corey Yuen called me back, and he said, we need to shoot another ending where you don't die. And then, I just have my arm in a sling, and then I'm in the boat to pick up Yuen Biao, who didn't die, and he comes out of the water. So it's interesting, like all these films are getting remastered now and on Blu-ray, and they're coming out. And I think on the Righting Wrong one, they have the two endings, so people could see the ending where we die and the ending where we live.
I guess, did Taiwan approve of the new ending then?
Yes, they did.
So, Millionaires Express, this is a Sammo Hung movie. Were you brought on by Sammo, or because Corey Yuen's also in this movie? Did he bring you on to Millionaires Express?
When I signed the contract to shoot in Hong Kong, it was with Seasonal Films, and I did something for World News Tonight, and it aired over there. And in the news clip, it said, "Here's Cynthia Rothrock. She signed a contract with the Hong Kong company." And but she hasn't done anything yet. This is about a year has passed since I signed the contract. And Sammo saw this in Hong Kong. He saw it on TV, and he called Corey Yuen and he said, "Oh, who's this girl?" And he said, "Yeah, MC Yuen signed her up." So Sammo knew who I was, and he was already planning, to put me then in Shanghai's Express. So it was Sammo's doing for Shanghai Express. And right after Yes, Madam finished, I was offered, the movie in Shanghai Express.
Did he make a character for you, or is there already a female character written in the script?
No, I remember, I don't think the script is already made. I think they kind of have an idea and they go through it as it was. So I think once they realized I was going to be in it, they said, okay, this is the part. And like Shanghai Express was, it had a couple other female fighters in it. At this point, they had a lot of action stars in it, so it was kind of Sammo's way to incorporate a lot of people that were popular already, to play different characters. But it was funny because Richard Norton and I played like these Confederates, and we're like, why would a Confederate, we have these Confederate uniforms on, why would we be in Hong Kong? But there was no real reason for that, just that was what Sammo wanted.
Was it shot in Hong Kong proper?
We shot in Hong Kong, and we also shot in Thailand.
So your fight with Sammo, I understand he's a pretty strong guy. Were you able to put padding under your outfit again this time?
Always. Always. I've learned my lesson after Yes, Madam. But yes, he is very strong and very, very powerful. Yeah. Everybody, again, they love to warn me about the powerful, strong fighters. Again, he was like Corey Yuen. He was a genius at choreography and, creating the fight scenes. And I loved working with him. And the fight wasn't that bad. It was tough. I mean, but the moves that were tough wasn't so much about blocking or striking. It was more about him picking me up and throwing me down on the floor, like those kind of moves, because that at that point I didn't do stunts. I was a martial artist. We don't learn how someone picks you up and breaks your back and throws you on the floor, you know. We didn't learn those kind of moves. So that for me was the toughest part. And I think that was the first time I did wire work too. We did a little bit of wire work. So that was fun for me because I've always wanted to be on a wire, but wasn't as easy as I thought it would be.
They didn't give you a double for that stuff?
Nope, I did that. They put me on a wire. It was where I did 3 kicks. And it was interesting that it was funny because they wanted you to do as much as you could possibly. And unless it was extreme or, you know, like some bizarre stunt, like jumping really high, like they would have me do part of it, then they'd have me do the end of it, and then they would have a stuntman do the middle of it, and then they'd add me, the stuntman, and then me coming in it. But pretty much, yeah, they wired me up to do like 3 kicks all at one time. And I was surprised because it's almost like water skiing, you know, if you don't get that timing of getting up on the ski, you're not going to get up. And the same thing with the wire. If you don't time it with the same time, you know, someone's pulling you up on the wire, it looks funny. So to get that timing down together wasn't as easy as I thought it would be.
Did you ever do any additional wire training in between shoots?
Never, no, never had any. All the training was learning it on set. All I could say is genius. You know, even now, when I look back at, you know, when these movies are being remastered and I'm doing interviews about, you know, behind the scenes or, you know, certain fight scenes, I still am amazed, you know, going, wow, you know, I'm still impressed with that action, you know, that it's still like that still impresses me after all this time, after all the action that we see. And nowadays, you know, we see a lot of CGI. There was no CGI done at all during that time. That is the actors, you know, physically doing these hard stunts, you know, and the actors aren't stunt people, you know, you just kind of go for it. And so many people get hurt. I know when we were shooting Lady Reporter, we were doing a big fight scene on this big rope, and one of the stunt guy broke his ankle on it, and something gave away on the top, and one of the stuntmen were paralyzed for life. So I mean, it's very dangerous. You could seriously like get hurt doing these moves.
Sammo was building the fight with you. How does he build the story of the fight? Does he sort of figure the whole thing out beforehand and then he just goes, or is it built piecemeal?
You know, I don't know because Sammo never told me, but I would assume he kind of has an idea of what he wants, and I think he probably tells the stunt people before they get to the set what he wants. I don't know if he says specifically the action, but he would say, you know, there's a stunt here, I want this, I want that, you know, put it together. When we were doing our scene, I think he kind of choreographed a lot of it himself, you know, because he knew the kind of moves that he wanted to do. So then again, too, you know, sometimes you have to change your choreography because maybe one of the actors can't do what they envision, you know, or they'll either bring in a stunt person to do it, or then, you know, they would change the move.
You did a film called Magic Crystal, a Hwang Jing movie. I'm curious what it was like to work with Hwang Jing.
That was so. It was a fun movie. It was very fun for me because we shot it in Taiwan. We shot it in Hong Kong, and we also shot it in Greece. And this is the first time I was ever to Greece, so I was like so excited about you know, shooting this film. And I remember there's a scene, and I mean, it was great. Like Hwang Jing spoke some English, so that was good. So I could understand some. And I know I'm doing a fight scene in the square where I'm doing a spear, and I blew my knee out again during that move. And I've had, we were there for 10 days in Greece, and that was shot in Greece. And I had fighting for 10 days. So they took me to some doctor, and he was doing acupuncture and all this and that, and like trying to help it out. But, you know, it's like the show must go on. You know, you can't say it. I can't do this, you know, so you just work around it. And if you look at the scene, you can't tell that I really could hardly walk, you know, from blowing my knee out on that, because it healed up, and then I did a jump, and I think it did that thing again. But a funny thing about Hwang Jing is I remember shooting this scene, And he says, look up at the ceiling. And I was like, well, what am I looking at? And he goes, doesn't matter, look up. So I'm looking up, and I don't know, I'm looking at the holes in the ceiling. And when I see the movie, because I don't know exactly, I have the idea of what this movie is about, but I don't know what anybody really is saying. I look up, and aliens are attacking us. And here I am looking up at the ceiling going, 1, 2. So I think acting isn't like a big thing when, when you're doing the movies, because that was probably an important note to tell me, you're getting invaded by aliens, and just say, just look up, just look up.
Did he not know what it was going to be?
No, of course, I think he absolutely knew. I think he didn't think it was important to tell me that. I don't know. And then it was very funny because it was like the Venus de Milo that was the alien, and the alien was so fake looking, and it talked, but the mouth didn't go. And you're talking back, no CGI, so they were just working with whatever they could. That's very it's quite funny. I remember Richard Norton and I were watching the midnight show of it, and we were just like, when the alien comes out, we're the only two there laughing, going, oh my God.
Who were you fighting in the square? Was that Tony Leung?
Yes, I believe it was. And I remember, when I was doing that spear scene, when I blew my knee out, it hurt, and you get shocked for a second, and I stabbed him in the groin with the spear instead of hitting him out, because I didn't want to stop it. It shocked me, it hurt me. And then, I mean, I didn't really like stab him, but I hit him. I didn't like hurt him that much. But I would have said, keep that in there. That's awesome. That's an awesome that he took that spear to the groin. But Hwang Jang said, no, we have to do it again, and like hit him in the head or wherever I hit him. But I was like, that worked out quite good. But he didn't think so.
So his choreography is very martial artsy, and that movie has a lot of martial arts, and it's really intricate stuff. Was it just him sort of creating all that on the spot?
Yeah, no, he has a stunt team. Like I said, they all have their own stunt teams. And I remember the ending scene with Richard Norton. It was their idea for me to do praying mantis. And I didn't study praying mantis, but I was able to pick up the choreography. But I did study Eagle Claw in China. I did Eagle Claw for him. So some of the movements you see are from what I learned in Chengdu, China, learning the Eagle Claw set. So I choreographed that because it was more like when I did the Eagle Claw movements, it was more like kind of doing a form. It wasn't, the fighting at first, and then they choreographed the Eagle Claw fighting. But, when you see me like coming up and shaking and coming in like an eagle, that was from my form from China.
And this was the first time you and Richard Norton worked together?
The first time was on Shanghai Express.
Did you feel like you had good company then, because you were two Guilos working on a Hong Kong movie?
I did. I was so glad that I had an actor that could speak English, and we got along really, really well. And it's funny because I said, Richard, I blew my knee out, and I don't want to tell Sammo that I can't fight that good with my right leg. And Richard just came back from shooting a film from the Philippines, and he like hit his leg on a rock and got this major infection, and they had to drain his leg like 3 times. So his one leg was bad too. And we're going, oh my God, we got to tell him that we're both injured. And we were like so afraid to say something. And I think we just never did. We just acted like, there was nothing going on. But that kind of bonded us right from the start, because we were like laughing. And I remember we first met Hwang Jang Lee, and Richard and Hwang Jang Lee kind of had this little thing against each other. And it wasn't like, it was kind of funny because Hwang Jang Lee said something to Richard like, oh, can you do this move? And not doing it, but verbally saying it. And Richard would go, yeah, well, can you do this? And then it got into their back and forth. Well, yeah, can you do a jumping spinning kick and a back kick in the air, and then do a jump front kick and then land down in a crane stance? It was funny. It was almost like an ego to an ego in a comical way.
Okay, you did a movie with Jackie Chan's stunt team. One of the titles, I know these go by a lot of titles. The Inspector Wears Skirts.
Yeah.
And you worked with Jeff Falcon, And what was there a different process working with the Jackie Chan stunt team?
No, yeah, it was pretty much the same process. I know though, when I was doing that movie, Meng Hoi said to me, be careful with the stunt team because they might not look out for you as much as we do. And I don't want you to get hurt because we won't be there. And I was a little nervous at that. And there's a scene, where I light this fire for the girls to run on. And they wanted me to light it and put my face right there. So the camera sees the fire, and my face at the same time. And I was a little nervous about that because Meng Hoi had me nervous, that be careful on what you're doing. And I had a situation when I was shooting No Retreat, No Surrender, where I almost got burned. Was it No Retreat? No, it was Lady Dragon. But well, oh, that was after. Anyway, okay, I was still nervous about getting hurt, and I asked them to do it for me so I could see how it goes. And I think they kind of felt like, oh my God, we got to light this fire and show her, and then we got to set it up again. And I was almost like, intimidated not to do it, but this just stuck in my head. No, show me. And when the stunt guy did it and he lit the fire, the wind blew and the fire came back all in his face, singed his hair, his eyebrows, right? And I went, oh my God, that could have been me. And so then they changed it. They changed it instead of me lighting the fire and you see my face there while, it burns, I light it and then I run back and let it go. And if I didn't do that, that could possibly have happened to me. So I always remember that they said, you look out for yourself. So thank God I went with my gut feeling and said, show me how that's going to work.
Did Meng Hoi direct similarly to Corey Yuen, or what was his style?
Yeah, I do think they've worked together all their lives. They were partners, so they had very, very similar styles. They used the same stunt team as well.
You fight with Jeff Falcon in this, also a wushu practitioner, I think. What was the synergy like with you guys on set?
Well, I think at this point I knew Jeff because we've done a couple movies together. I believe he was in Lady Reporter, and he was also in Prince of the Sun as well. So at that point, I don't think that was the first time I met him. So I've already fought with him. So I think, we already knew each other and we were friends at that point. And when you do a movie in Hong Kong and you're the only English speaking people there, you actually bond and hang out together as much as you can.
I want to hear about working on Blonde Fury, working with Billy Chow. Was he like Dick Wei or a different kind of fighter than Dick Wei?
We had a great scene. I mean, the scene that they choreographed when we were fighting on those pillars was extremely hard. And we were both on wires. And I remember, again, looking at the stunt people, and I kept saying, you're held up on a wire by two stuntmen in the back holding it. So if they let it go, you're going to fall. So I just kept saying, please pay attention, And I remember when Billy was doing his fight scene, they let it go. And he fell down in between those posts and scraped his back. He really hurt his back pretty bad because they let him go, So now we're nervous, like fighting, because some of these things were like 20 feet up in the air, we're jumping, and we were wired the whole time. But now you don't feel so safe because they let him go and he got hurt. And he was a very good sport about it. It's just like, yeah, that sucks, but you got to get up and finish the scene.
Okay, yeah, talk about the TIE fighter. I want to hear about this guy because it looks like a tough fight. Like he looks like he wanted to kill you.
Oh, this was so tough. It's probably, I'd say, one of my toughest fighters. And they kept telling me, oh, we're bringing in this was in Lady Reporter. They kept telling me, he's so tough, the stuntmen don't even want to fight him. And I just remember I had a dress on, so I couldn't put pads on my legs. And they kept choreographing where he hits me in the shins. And there's one scene, right? It looks like nothing when you film it. It's probably one of the worst techniques I've ever taken on a film, where he kicks me in the shins and I have to fall flat on my face. never mind that hurting, but falling flat on your face. And when we first started, he was hitting me so hard that the little pads that they gave me weren't helping, and my hands were so bruised. So then the props guy made me iron out of steel arm guards. So now we're fighting, and I'm hitting really hard because he's hitting really hard. So I'm going to hit hard. And now I'm hurting his hands because I have metal. So then they made him metal guards. And the two of us, every time we were fighting, I mean, it's filmed with no sound, so you don't hear it, but you hear clink, 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 like that. And even when I look at those scenes today, you know, when he has me and he's doing those knees to my chest, boy, I tell you, yeah, I was glad when that scene was done.
Did they tell him to go that hard?
I don't know. I didn't understand if they did, but he
Did you make someone angry?
But even, you know, I think there's like two places in there where they had a double, you know, and the double was like, not, you're going, oh my God, he hit me so hard. Yeah. I think he just wanted to look tough and strong on film. And maybe Meng Hoi was saying you got to hit hard, because remember, they like it. They like it. The harder you hit, the more realistic they think it is, you know. And yeah, that ending scene took a long time. And I remember there's a scene where I kick him in the chin with my heel, and I had to really hit him. And that was probably his worst movement in that whole scene, is getting hit in the heel right here in the chin.
Do you think that kind of attitude works out for someone like him in Hong Kong, having that super tough guy attitude as a stuntman?
You know, I don't know, because I don't recall. Usually, if you do a Hong Kong movie and you do quite well, everybody wants to use you for another film, you know. And I don't know if he ever came back for any other movies. And like I said, I never really talked to him. All we did is just fight, because I don't know if he couldn't speak the language, either language, but I just remember I don't remember him ever smiling. It's always tough. Maybe he was just staying in character, the real bad guy. But that was supposed to be the ending of the movie. So it was supposed to be really brutal and tough. And then Golden Harvest brought in Corey Yuen to shoot in the ending, and then they added more to it. But that was the original ending from Meng Hoi. And this is like Meng Hoi's first film that he was directing. So this was like his baby.
So Corey Yuen came and did the fight on the net.
Yeah, I did that. He did the net fight, and he did with the truck coming through. That was all Corey Yuen.
Any fun stories from that scene? That's a very technical fight.
Yeah, I thought, it was going to be easy, you know, on the ropes, but those ropes were like rope burn. I had so many rope burns, like from bouncing off them, and you'd think I thought at first it's going to be like a trampoline, you know, that it's going to bounce and it's going to be soft, and it wasn't. The ropes were really hard, and I'd go home with like red welts all over my body from bouncing off those ropes. And like I said, you know, the stuntmen were crawling up after me, and the one guy got his foot twisted in the rope and broke his ankle, you know, and then the other guy got hurt. And it was a very, very tough scene, but, you know, incredibly genius, you know. And same thing when we come down off that, you know, they have the truck like coming through, and we're fighting in front of it. And Corey Yuen just was like, don't look at it, you know, it's going to get close to you, but just, you know, it could have hit us while we were fighting if you didn't get out of the way. And then we have the ending scene, you know, where we're in the truck. That was a brutal scene too. I mean, I think when Corey Yuen came in, he upped the danger of doing this movie like 500% on those moves. But it again, brilliant choreography.
Was he inspired by any other films at the time, and why was he bringing such a big production value to that end scene?
I don't think he was inspired. I think that just kind of I think Golden Harvest probably said, you know, we want more. We want more in the ending, and you got to top the fight scene with, you know, the TIE fighter, and that was pretty brilliant in itself, you know. And he really like topped it, but you know, by going, you know, with this net. And sometimes we weren't wired on that, so it could have been very easy to fall, you know, through that through the ropes, through the squares.
the certain level of dedication that people probably don't see on a daily basis with these guys. You're doing that too, though. I mean, you're doing the same thing.
I
Everybody
know.
on set is
Yeah.
doing that.
And I think that was just how it was. If you were an action star, you were a stuntman. The chances are, you could get hurt, but you want to work, you want to try your best. And I would think, oh, I'm going to get killed on the next one, and after I do the movie, I'd go, this is it. I do a really tough stunt where it's like, wow, I could have been killed on that, and I go, this is it, I'm going to get killed. And then I would see the movie in the end, and I would be so impressed and happy with the fighting. If you're like, okay, when's the next one? When's the next one? So I went from I'm going to get killed to when's the next one?
Speaking of tough stunt guys, you worked with Ridley Choi on City Cops. Was he the action designer on that? That was a 1989, I think.
They weren't the Golden Harvest stunt people. So I just met them while I was shooting. I think I only did like 6 weeks on that film there. So other than doing some of the fight scenes, I don't remember who the people were, because I didn't work with them again. It was just during that short time.
So, did you ever join the Hong Kong Stuntman's Association?
No, I didn't even know there was one at the time.
Did Prince of the Sun, Conan Lee, and that's action by Yuen Tak, Richard Yuen, right? Did he go by Richard?
Yes.
Was his style any different than Corey's?
It's all good. It was different, and I don't even know how it was different. I think it was more kung fu, but that could have been because we were monks, and we were training in the kung fu style. But even in it, yeah, I think when I come to think about it, because I have to go back and think about it, I think it was more like fighting instead of really like crazy stunts that Corey Yuen does.
By the way, are you doing American films while you're doing these Hong Kong films that we've been talking about? Or was there this hard line between your Hong Kong films and then you come to America and do American films?
No, I was just doing Hong Kong films. And while I was shooting China O'Brien in Utah, I had a 3-picture deal, and we did Righting Wrongs. And then they were going to do China O'Brien 1 and China O'Brien 2, and that would be the end of my contract. And while I was shooting China O'Brien, I had a call from William Friedkin saying that they wanted me to co-star with Sylvester Stallone in a movie called The Executioner. So while I was shooting China O'Brien, they flew me to LA. I met with everybody. I signed a contract to do this movie, The Executioner. And at that point, they got an agent for me. They gave me Stallone's attorney, and they told me I can't do any more Hong Kong movies, then that I just have to do big budget American movies. And to me, I was just listening to what they say, because I was like, well, who am I going to argue? Because Golden Harvest wanted to do China O'Brien 3 and 4, and they offered me a lot of money to do that. And Sylvester Stallone's team said, no, you can't do it. So I didn't, thinking that I'm going to be doing an A picture with Sylvester Stallone. It was a buddy picture, and that movie unfortunately never went. But I ended up, at that time, it was a pay or play. I made more money on that than I've ever done on any film I've done before, which was kind of a shame, because I would rather not have money and have done the film with Sylvester Stallone than walk away with all that money and not do the picture. And then at that point, Golden Harvest was going to be closing up shop, and that wasn't an option anymore to do that.
Why wouldn't they let you do any Hong Kong films?
They said it wasn't good for my career to do that. And it's interesting, because my friend was David Carradine, and he was doing Kill Bill, and he talked to Tarantino and said, hey, why don't you put Cynthia in this movie? And Tarantino said, well, no, because she should have never left Hong Kong. And I was like, well, what does that have to do with it? But that's what David Carradine told me. I don't know if it's true or not, but yeah, they just didn't want me to do those kind of films. They just wanted me to do big budget films, which in my entire career has never happened yet.
When you did China O'Brien, there is this kind of Hong Kong style about them. It's sort of this halfway house.
Yes.
Style of action between Hong Kong and American films. Was Klaus involved directly in the action scenes?
Yes. here's what happened. Robert Klaus was the director, and he had a certain way of shooting, and it wasn't the way that I was used to in Hong Kong. Because in Hong Kong, you would do section by section and you'd keep doing it. And he didn't want to do section by section. He just wanted to film the whole thing without cuts, without going in for that close up of the face, without, going in for those inserts. He just wanted to shoot the whole thing. And I remember we were saying, but we didn't do that in Hong Kong. And he goes, well, this is how Bruce Lee shot it. And that's how I'm shooting it. That was his like reasoning for it. And we just, I didn't like that particular style because I liked the Corey Yuen style, but we had to do it. And they only brought over, I think, 2 stuntmen from Hong Kong to choreograph and work on this. So they would do that. But I think the half Hong Kong and the half American came like when I was fighting them, then it looked like Hong Kong. And they also had an American choreographer as well. So I kind of wanted the Hong Kong guys, and Robert Klaus wanted the American guy. It was his buddy that was choreographing it, and I was just used to the Hong Kong stuff and not the simplicity of the American stuff. So I think that's why it's half and half, because some that the 2 Hong Kong guys did, and then some that the American choreographer did.
You were the only American who had Hong Kong film training on this film, is that correct?
No, Richard Norton did too, because
Richard Norton was in there. Okay.
Right, Richard Norton
So,
did the Shanghai Express. And Richard also did a movie with Jackie Chan. I don't remember what one it was, but he did fight with him. And that, I don't know, that had to be prior to the China O'Briens, yeah.
what was it that you preferred about Corey Yuen's style to the American style?
I liked the challenging of it. The moves were so complicated and hard, but when you pull them off, they looked phenomenal on screen. And, the American way was just typical, punching and kicking, no stunts, no, like, for example, Yes, Madam, they had me do a aerial on a stick and then do the split on the wall. That took like a full day just to do that one scene. When we shot China O'Brien, we're shooting the 2 movies, I think, in 6 weeks. We shot the whole 2 movies, China O'Brien 1 and 2, in 6 weeks. So, you're looking at shooting just an ending fight scene in Hong Kong in a whole movie. So it was different. So they didn't want to take time to do like all these kind of stunts. Plus they didn't have the crew, that it was a smaller crew here, and they didn't have the crew to do wire work or to do that kind of stuff. They didn't have the crew, they didn't have the time, and it was pretty much, well, you could see when you watch China O'Brien which moves look more American choreographed and ones look Hong Kong. So a little bit of Hong Kong, not the extent, but a little bit.
Were these American directors and cinematographers just not interested in copying anything from Hong Kong, and they just had their way that they wanted to do it?
Oh, absolutely. I remember I was shooting a movie called Outside the Law, and I wanted to get Corey Yuen to come and choreograph it. And I called him, and he at that time was shooting a movie in LA with Jet Li. And he said, Cynthia, my salary is more than your budget. He goes, but just copy the moves from Yes, Madam. Just do the exact scene. He goes, nobody's seen it. Nobody's going to know. But you couldn't, because you didn't have the people to rig it. You didn't have the stunt people to do it. It took so long to shoot, it wasn't possible. And you'd get to like a lot of movies, you think, okay, we're going to do the ending fight scene. It's going to be climatic, and we're going to take all this time. And by the time you get to shooting it, it's like, yeah, we have like 20 minutes to shoot it, so if you do it really fast and the action is pretty simple. And that unfortunately that has happened a lot in a lot of some of the films I did, is that they say you're going to do a good long action scene, and you get to the point and we got to be out of here like in 45 minutes, so let's hurry up and do this, so then the action gets cut shorter and simpler.
Did you ever have time to rehearse on these American films?
I think on China O'Brien, yeah, we did have a little bit of time to do that because we were brought in earlier before the shooting. So yeah, I think we did have a little bit of time to rehearse some of those scenes.
Was it different performing with American stunt performers?
Yes and no. I mean, it depends on who you're with, you know, and it depends on the choreography. I mean, I have fought some really good people here, you know, in America, and it, you know, it depends on what the action is. Sometimes, you know, if it's just so simple. It's, at that time, I used to say, "Ooh, when I'm doing American movies, it's like a vacation doing the fight scenes," you know, because I didn't get hurt, and I'd be like, "Wow, I don't even need to wear pads." You know, it was a big transition for me to do that on some of the films, but I still think well, I think back, you know, we're talking back in the 90s, early 90s, and I don't think a lot of the choreographers actually were doing this kind of action. They didn't know it. I don't think it came until maybe like The Matrix came out, that now people were coming up and going, oh yeah, now we got to do more action. You know, we got to do the, you know, now a lot of times, like you see the same moves in the same movies, you know, the same poses. People get down on their knee and do that hero pose. It's like, I see that one more time, I'm going to scream. It's like, start, you know, think of getting different. And I think that's what I loved about Hong Kong, is that everything was so different. You never did the same moves over and over, and seeing the same moves over and over. And not to say, you know, a good punch, a good roundhouse kick to the face isn't powerful, because it is, but I like the creativity of something different, you know, different that you're seeing on film.
You did fights with Benny Urquidez, for example, who also, you know, had some Hong Kong film experience. Was there an attempt on your part to try and Hong Kongify the fight? I guess that's the word I'm trying to go for.
Yeah.
Or did you guys just decide, look, we're working within this system, let's just go with what they have?
Yeah, pretty much more you're working in the system to go with that. And we like change it a little bit, like how about this or how about that? On that particular film, you know, yeah, we just worked with it. I've been on films, you know, like there was no choreographer, and I'd go, where's the choreographer? And they go, well, that's you. What do you want to do? You know, and I go, well, I'm not a choreographer. I didn't get hired for that. And I'd have to choreograph my own fight scenes because nobody was there. Or I've been on it where like I've had one scene in a movie I did, and the choreography was I just didn't like it. And I said, can I just do this and this? And I just ended up choreographing the whole thing. And I tried to put a little bit of element to it, but you know, I'm not as you know, creative as the Hong Kong Sun people were. You know, I could do it, but maybe I would do like half American, half Hong Kong. You know, it's an incredible talent, I think, to do what they have done.
I mean, it does require a lot more cooperation than what you had though on set. I mean, if you took Yes Madam choreography and put it in an American film shoot, you would still have to get the camera guy to put the camera where you wanted, and then you would have to cut at a certain point and not shoot masters. So, you know, it's not, you know, to your credit, it's not as simple as just making great choreography, because if the camera doesn't see it, it's bad choreography, right? And if the editor cuts it out, then it never existed, right?
Absolutely. And it's like, you know, sometimes they speed it up a little bit. That's the Hong Kong way of doing it, you know, and a lot of American directors don't want to do that. You know, there's so many things. And I think it takes so long to set up those shots, you know, and in Hong Kong, like I said, the movies were 5.5 to 7.5 months to shoot. So they had a lot of time to do that. But if they had to shoot the whole film in 5 weeks, you know, they probably wouldn't be able to do it. Where like a lot of the independent, you know, martial art action pictures don't have that luxury or that time.
How do you take the Hong Kong style, but you're in a coverage system and you don't know how it's going to be edited? What do you do then, and how do you even design a fight for that situation?
Usually, like on the films I did, I could look at the camera and go, oh, that wasn't a miss or a hit, but I can't really, you know, tell the camera where to go. You know, you say, oh yeah, that, you know, and then the camera might move it. I mean, it's kind of like overstepping your job, so you just don't really like try to do that. You just kind of, for me anyway, it's like have faith in that they know what they're doing and they're going to get a really good fight scene out of it, and I've choreographed moves, and sometimes you're working with someone that doesn't can't do that. A lot of it depends on the stunt person you're fighting with. If you hit them and they fall down on the floor, or you hit them and they spin and flip and bang into something, like it is a big difference on that. So it's kind of hard. It's not, like you said, it's not just one component, it's a lot of components that make up these scenes that you see in Hong Kong films.
How were you taught to move so that your action looked normal when they undercranked Hong Kong action?
We just kind of just went for it at a pretty fast pace. Whether they cranked it or not, it was probably still going to look fast. It was never slow, never slow. It was always kind of fast. So like a lot of times, like I just finished a film, and the director wanted everything really fast and no pauses at all, not a pause. So we had to just blast it. So I'm sure if they tried to crank that up, it would be too fast. It'd look a little silly.
Yeah, I suppose there is a certain way that you would have to shoot that so it doesn't look like a Benny Hill fight scene, right?
Benny Hill.
When you are doing American fight scenes and you're doing these masters, of course, in Hong Kong films, you're doing a long sequence of moves. But in masters in America, are you doing longer takes than that?
I'd say no, not as long as some of the movements were. I mean, some of the times in Hong Kong, it was like, oh, how am I going to remember all that? And someone would forget it and start all over again. That's why they take, like, it's normal to take like 30 to 60 takes of the same fight scene, because someone's going to mess up somewhere.
Did you find, though, that American directors appreciated your acting abilities as a performer, or are they just telling you to look at the ceiling and they'll figure out what they're going to put up there later?
It's interesting. A lot of the American movies I did, and I feel like, when I first started, I didn't really know anything about acting. In Hong Kong, it didn't matter because I was dubbed. When I started doing American movies, that the more you do, the better you get, the more confident you get, the more you learn. And unfortunately, back in like the 90s, when we were doing movies then, and it's different today, I feel that the directors really didn't, I don't know, they didn't pay much attention to the acting. It was more like the action. The action was important, because if I look back now, I go, oh, I could have done that scene better. And like, for an example, like this last movie I did, the director was just as adamant about the acting as he was about the fight scenes. And I love that. And I said, I love working with you because I like, you could pull a better performance from me. Oh, do it, because and I wish that all the directors that I worked with were like that, and I guess they thought I was doing okay, but I think I could have done better if someone would have said, oh, hey, yeah, that's good, but let's get it a little better.
With your Hong Kong film experience, did you ever try and teach American stuntmen how to do it your way?
No, I don't think so. No. I would change things, like, so it's a little bit more my way, but I kind of let them do their job and just, go with it, because I don't think they really want you to tell them, hey, this is better, or I want to move this way, or whatever. You gotta, that's their job, and they're doing it. And you go in, they have this choreographed. And I think a lot of times, like the people I'm fighting with, maybe they rehearse it with them more, right? Because I could just come in and just do it like that, but not all people can do that. They have to rehearse it. So then they bring in the guy, and I go and change it, and then we go to do the scene, and he practiced it so much the way they said it, he can't get that move right, and you got to be able to, I say, you got to be able to change. It's like, no, I hit you high and you block low. Well, you changed it, well, so it kind of throws off, I guess, what you would say, the fluidity of filming. You kind of, I just kind of go with it, and that's why I'm excited about doing my own film, because now I have the say in everything. I don't have to, listen to someone that's going to tell me to do something I don't want to do. So that's very exciting for me after 70 films to be in this seat. And unfortunately I can't bring over Hong Kong choreographers because I'd love to, but I found like 2 stunt teams, one from Switzerland, one from Mexico, that I'm going to bring in, that I do like the action. And I think if it's not, it's just the little things. It's the little things like, like whether you're going to take a knife out, and whether you take it out or you flip it out, it's just those little things I think that make uh fight scenes just a little better. And I like that. I like those little, things that just add to it instead of doing it in a basic way.
When you're going to be the star of this film, and you're directing it as well?
No, I'm not directing. No, 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 no. I don't think I would ever get to that point there, but no, I was one of the writers, producer, and star. And someone else is directing in the DP, but I probably will be sitting at the monitor a lot, looking at the lighting, make sure the lighting is good, make sure the action, it looks great on the monitor. So it's going to be a whole new experience for me, because it's like I'm not going to be able to just focus on my part. I got to focus on everybody's part, because this is my film, and if it doesn't come out the way I want it, then I did something wrong.
So what is your approach then for when you're designing your own action scenes now? You have more control now. Where do you start in conceptualizing the action scene?
Well, kind of what I like to do. I like to have a choreographer that knows how I like to move and how I like to fight, and have them put something together. And then I like to come in and then tweak it and say, hey, let's change this, let's do this, or let's add that. That's kind of how I like to work. I mean, I don't want to go in and design my own fight scene, but I would like to contribute to the basis of what the people that I have hired for choreographers do.
What kind of things do you find yourself tweaking?
Maybe something like say, for example, like in the last film, I'm like, wait, I've done too many front kicks. I don't want to do this front kick. Let me do this spinning kick instead. Or, especially with weapons, I changed like some of the weapon things, because, I love fighting with weapons, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a little simple. I can add this spin and make this look a little better, or, tweaks like on that kind of nature.
What are you watching these days for
The
inspiration?
film I'm doing is a Western, so I'm not really watching action for inspiration. I'm watching more, like the 1900 films, watching, okay, how do they shoot that? You know, what kind of guns they use, what the costuming is, lighting, how I foresee this scene coming in. I want it lit with torches, like that kind of things. I'm really like looking at to be inspired, because I don't like to copy anybody's action. I don't want to do that. I really don't want to even really see it too much. I don't watch a whole lot of action movies. I will, watch like some, but I don't look at action films for inspiration. So I'm looking more at westerns, like how they acted, how it was back in the 1900s. So that's more where my inspiration is heading for this movie I'm doing, Black Creek.
But when you do see action movies, I'm sure clips come across your desk. What are you looking at when you watch those action scenes today?
How realistic it is, what the technique is. Like if I see something and it's a miss, or someone's foot is in the wrong position, going, oh, they would have broke their foot that way. I'm too technical. And then I can't watch it. Or I see someone's fist wrong, punching wrong, I can't watch action pictures like that. I like to watch things that excite me, and for example, when I saw Sherlock Holmes, right? I watched Robert Downey Jr. doing this Wing Chun, and I was like, wow, that's pretty good. And I like how they did it slow, and then he thought of it in his mind, and then he did it fast. And I was so impressed. I was like, I can't believe how good Robert Downey Jr. is. He's not a martial artist. And then later on, I learned he was a Wing Chun stylist. So, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised with that action scene. And I remember it, I remember it because it had an impact. I remember Kingsman, when I first saw the first one, like the opening scene, I loved it. And it held my attention. So I need to be excited. If I'm bored with it or I'm finding things wrong, like I don't want to watch it. It's like a chef, he could go to a restaurant and the food isn't that great. He can't eat it. He can't go there. And it's kind of bad because it hurts my feeling of watching an action movie. But you know what? If it's great action, I love it. I love it. I'm very happy to watch that. But unfortunately, a lot of the stuff sometimes you see it isn't exciting, I guess you'd say.
Where do you think that excitement comes from? Is it story? Is it the choreographer? Is it the filmmaking?
Well, for fighting, for me, it's the choreography. I don't like watching movies that don't have a good story to it. I just saw John Wick 4, and to me, it really wasn't much of a story. It was all action, but the action was incredible. So I loved it. I sat through that whole movie and I wasn't bored at all. And I just really liked that action. But when you look at that, those people have doubles, they have a long time to shoot it, they've had rehearsals. It wasn't like doing an action picture for 6 weeks and coming in and just shooting it. So it better be good at that budget. But I really loved that kind of action. Of course, you have Donnie Yen, coming in with Hong Kong kind of style action.
Did having a child push you in a new way in your career?
I had my daughter in 1999, and I only did like 2 films, I think, during that time. I did one when she was a baby for Don Wilson, Redemption. It was just a small part. And then I did Outside the Law when she was 3. And I remember bringing my mom to Puerto Rico to watch my daughter while I was working. I didn't know if I could do that. I'm like, how can I handle this? I have a little baby. And I didn't want to shoot in Hong Kong. I didn't want to shoot in Indonesia. I didn't want to shoot in some of these places I have and bring this little baby with me, So I pretty much stopped for 10 years until she got in middle school. And then I was just focused 100% on mom. I mean, that was my life, being mom. And I didn't care if I worked or not. I was just happy, being mom. And when she started not wanting mom around so much and started hanging out with her friends, I was like, oh, I have to go back to work. And then it was interesting because I took the 10 years off and everybody's like, Cynthia retired. I was like, no, I didn't retire. I just, took that time off because I had a baby and that's, what I wanted to do. I guess it's good now because now I don't know what it is, but the action must be up again, getting a lot of scripts, a lot of offers now. So it's funny, like how, my career has been really high and then it went down low and now it's creeping back up to go high. It's just kind of, wherever it is, I'm happy with it. It's not like I have to do this. I have to be filming because I just enjoy life and I like doing a lot of other things. So I'm like, well, hey, if I'm not shooting, I'm with my daughter. Now my daughter's 23. She's 23 years old. And, I like hanging out with her. She likes to hang out with mom again. So she went into that cycle of, I love hanging with my mom. Now I want to be with my friends. And now I want to be with my mom again. So I'm loving that aspect of parenting, but yeah, she's like my greatest adventure, greatest blessing that has ever happened to me, way over filming or action. So
I agree with your sentiments about having kids. It's definitely it's at least the most exciting adventure, let's say.
yes.
Did parenthood change how you see action and I guess by extension violence as well?
No, it hasn't, because I still like violent films. I like gory films. I like dark and gritty films, you know. So no, that hasn't changed at all. I still, as far as what I like it and what I do, you know.
So what do you do now for training?
I do a lot of things. I travel around the world doing seminars, so I'm training a bit. I train people, you know, when I do seminars, I do private lessons. On my own, I got into probably, I think when my daughter stopped wanting to hang around with me, which is probably was about, oh, maybe 10 years ago, I started getting into extreme adventure, doing really adventurous stuff, hiking to places that are really complicated to get to, you know, bungee jumping, whitewater rafting, you know, I've gotten into that. So I liked it. I don't know. I forgot what your question was, but I think
For
that's
training.
yeah,
It sounds like your
training.
training is
Yes. So
very
yes.
holistic now.
So I do that. I scuba dive. You know, that to me, it's all physical stuff. I do physical stuff. I do hot yoga every single day. I like that. I have 4 dogs, so I'm constantly taking them out for a walk. And I have a lot of energy. I really don't. I don't really, you know, just ever like sit down and not doing something. If I'm home, I got to be cleaning the house, or I got to be doing, you know, I have this energy. So I'm always moving. I'm always, you know, very active, and people are like, how do you get that energy? Cause I'll like travel so much back to back to back to back. But I enjoy being busy, and I enjoy doing all kinds of things. So I think, you know, all that combination of everything is like keeping me in a good fitness routine.
Do you ever keep tabs on the Hong Kong film scene, and or keep in contact with any of the Hong Kong stuntmen or stunt women that you worked with?
I haven't, no, because you know, in 1999, they all left Hong Kong, and everybody went here, there. Some people went to China to study, and kind of lost track of all of them. Recently, I just connected with Godfrey Ho, who's was one of the Hong Kong directors, and you know, I tried to get in touch with Yuen quite a bit, and or you know, Yuen Biao. I'd love to do a another movie with Yuen Biao. So, but as far as having a phone number to calling them up, no, I haven't. I don't know. Everybody kind of went off, and I haven't heard anything about them, what they've done, you know. But I'd love to like get in touch again with Sammo, and I was trying to get in touch with Corey Yuen, but I hear he's got some health issues right now. So hoping he's going to be okay.
I wanted to ask you about Godfrey Ho. You did a few movies with him.
Yeah.
Were those in America? And what's it like doing a Godfrey Ho movie?
You know, it's so funny. Godfrey is a lot of fun. He paid me a lot of money to do these movies, and you just hope that this movie's going to be good, right? And you get there, and like Godfrey's like, well, I paid you so much money, I couldn't afford to pay anybody else, so everybody is free. And they'd go, well, I can't stay today to shoot this film, I have to go to work. And I'm like, okay. And then there was a scene, you know, one of Godfrey's movies where I think it was my sister, best friend, someone they died, and they were in the coffin, and I'm crying, and she goes, I gotta go. And I'm like, wait, this is an important scene. I need you there. And she had to go to work. And then Godfrey put his fist there in the coffin, and he's going like this. And he's like, look at my hand. I'm like, Godfrey, I can't look at your hand and do my dialogue. And that was his way, like, here, look over here. And then he'd go like this, you know, and talk to the hand. I guess that's what he heard, talk to the hand. But he used to go like this. And I was like, can I like please just have a body in here? I can't talk to this, you know. So he had some strange methods of shooting. And it's funny because I did 2 movies with him, Undefeatable and Honor and Glory. And I recently looked at Undefeatable because they're remastering it. And I was like, oh, the action wasn't too bad, but you know, he does have a way of having people overact, like comic book character kind of. But I've also found out that people love this. People love Godfrey Ho. Every time I go to a screening, well, what was it like working with Godfrey Ho? Or, you know, what are you going to do Undefeatable too? never, and it's just his style. I think it's got some kind of weird comedic, horrific, like horror kind of combination together. But when I was doing it, I didn't know. I never saw anything that Godfrey did before. But now I'm coming to realize that he's got a big fan base because of his particular way of shooting films.
Yeah, that fight, especially at the end of Undefeatable, has a certain there's something because it's kind of a Hong Kong style fight, right? Did he choreograph the action as well, or was there
No, he had choreographers, but again, you weren't fighting the Hong Kong people, right? So I always say it doesn't matter how good you are, if you're fighting someone that can't sell it, you're not going to look as good. So we were trying to do these moves, but the people we were fighting with were like just martial artists from local schools. And they couldn't react the way maybe someone would, doing something a little bit more complicated, and we just did the interviews about Undefeatable. And I think like John, they said John wouldn't even talk about doing the interview. He's like, no, he just like hated how he came out, like taking the shirt off and bugging the eyeballs out, and doing that kind of acting. And it was like, well, it is what it is. And, if people like it and it's become a cult film because it's unusual, well, so be it,
Yeah, I think well, there's just a difference in attitude, right? Like you can either take it very seriously and worry that it's going to affect how people are going to perceive you, or treat it for what it is.
Yeah, and actually it was so corny and some of it was so bad that it became funny. And it's funny, and it's like, you did it, live up to it, and you just laugh along with everybody else, but I guess he was like embarrassed by it. Won't even answer the phone. No, I don't want anything to do with that, And it's funny because I did a movie, I actually didn't do it. It was called New York Ninja. Have you heard that one? And Vinegar Syndrome come out, and it was with John Liu. Do you remember a Chinese guy by the name of John Liu, an actor?
No.
Well, he was before my time, but I've learned of him since. And he was quite big in the Asian film market. And he did this movie, New York Ninja. It was going to be his ticket, to hit the American market, probably back in the 80s, or yeah, maybe it could have been late 70s. I don't know. And the movie was really bad, and nothing ever came of it. And Brett Henderson goes to buy some film, and he sees all these rolls, like big canisters of film. That's what they used back then. Remember those big canisters of film? And he said, "What's that?" And they said, "Oh, it's a movie, New York Ninja." And he goes, "Can I have that?" And they said, "Yeah, take it. We're not doing anything with it." So he literally pieced pieces together to make a film, and some of it doesn't make sense. All of a sudden John Liu was on roller skates in New York City, and then all of a sudden he's in a tree. I mean, it totally didn't make sense. And what Brad did is he wrote a script because there was no sound and he couldn't find any of the actors, and John Liu didn't want to have anything to do with it. So they hired me and Don Wilson and a couple other people just to do voiceovers, right? And I was like, oh my God, the girl that did the voice, I had to do the voiceover for the action, was so bad. There was so many misses and stuff like that. I was trying to make it so strong with my voice, and they screened it, and I thought, this is going to be the most horrible movie I've ever seen in my life. But the way he did it, it was genius. It was so funny. It was at a film festival that people stood up and started cheering because it's so silly that it's funny, and it's going to probably be one of those weird cult films.
John Liu, are you talking about the kicker from Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know him very well. Okay.
And he wouldn't do an interview either. He said, "Don't even talk to me. I don't have anything to do with that," because he thought it was so bad. But the funny thing is that Brad actually made the script out of nothing, just from what he saw and what he was able to piece together. He wrote dialogue, and we went in and tried to match the voices to the dialogue of the script that he did. So who knows what the whole thing really was about.
Where do you think the American action film industry is going, and where would you like it to go?
I think it's at a very high level, which it was before, because now, people could shoot movies with their iPhones. It's not like in the old days, you had to have all these cameras. The thing is, I see a lot of movies are being made now, and I think because we have such a broad streaming channel. I mean, there's so many channels out there. I think, they can't get enough of content. So these, like, you have Netflix and Amazon Prime and Paramount and all those, they're looking for content. So I see right now a lot of people are doing a lot of movies. I just hope it doesn't get saturated with movies that really aren't that good, and then the industry dies again, because I think that's what happened is they were so popular, and then a lot of movies weren't coming out good. Then the studios started taking over all the independents, but now it seems like a lot of independents are doing movies again, and I think it's at a good point. I really do. I just hope the quality is pretty decent, and I think as long as you have a good story, you have a good story and decent action, it's good. You need to do a good film.
You have any advice for anybody coming up in the industry who wants to do what you did? Maybe not necessarily starting in Hong Kong,
Right.
but going from martial arts to being a martial arts actor or actress.
Yeah, I think I travel all around the place. A lot of martial artists always have, even from when I started, want to be in films, and it's not like the easiest market to get into, because they're not, compared to all the other acting, it's still a small percentage of action pictures that are going. But I would tell people, make sure, nowadays, you take acting classes, because you won't get by just with action. You have to have a good acting base as well. Probably, you're not going to get a job where you're going to get in a film and all of a sudden be the lead. You could be like one of the bad guys, and maybe sign up with a stunt school, get some stunts going on. Like for Black Creek now, I did my film on a crowd fundraiser, and some of the incentives were you could have a fight scene with one of us, not a big fight scene, but you'll take a few hits. You could have a line in it, and that was some of the incentives to raise money to do this film. And the people that have done it, it's been their lifelong dream to be in a movie, especially with the cast I have. And I'm glad that, they're helping me raise the money, but at the same time, I'm helping them with probably something that would never happen in their lifetime, if they didn't have this opportunity. So seek opportunities, like that. Like I have one, like an incentive where you can follow the director and learn how, he shoots and things like that. I mean, that thing is like priceless, I think, to people that really want to get in that field. So if you can find situations like that, go for it, because that's a good entry level. So if someone comes in from my film, I said, look, you're going to meet a lot of people there that do movies. So if you come across like really good and you're a nice person and they like you, you're going to get probably opportunities to shoot in other people's films.
Well, this has been a lot of fun and fascinating. Thank you so much for taking time to talk, and love your work. And thank you for inspiring so many of us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Action Talks is available on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Join my Telegram at t.me/Eric Jacobus. You can check out my studio at superalloyinteractive.com. My website and blog is at ericjacobus.com, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.